am compelled by Schlock.
Hey now, you're a Schlock star. Get your game on. Get paid? I'm Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous joining me. We are your hosts for tonight's Schlock show, and we are watching the cult classic Dark Star. How you doing, Chris? Have you paid your taxes? Today's tax day, if you didn't know that.
I knew that, and I have paid them.
I'm a rebel and I have not gotten to it, so I can tell you what I'll be doing very shortly.
Right after this show.
And if you haven't done it, the government, they got to get theirs so that they can fill all those potholes, the schlock holes. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't done it, they're probably coming to arrest you right now. So before you run and hide, make sure you like, comment, and especially subscribe because we are going on a journey into outer space. I'm very excited about this movie, and I think that we can talk about it forever. So this movie is called Dark Star. It came out in 1974. I'm going to save some things for the web of Schlock because I'm sure you have a lot to say there. So I want to tell you real quick how this movie got to us. Of course, it's on Tubi because we watch everything on Tubi because it's free, and we want you all to be able to see what we're watching and be able to join in the conversation in the comments and whatnot. But a guy I work with by the name of Greg, I work at a community college. He doesn't currently do it. He still works there doing all their video editing and things like that. But he also periodically teaches like film appreciation, film history classes. And in his science fiction class, he always shows his students Dark Star. And so he came to me one day and he said, if you are doing a show about schlocky movies, let me give you this. It's the right thing to do. He kept saying that. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. You got to watch Dark Star and tell me what you think of it. So, like I said, this movie created in 1974. It was a student film that turned into a full-length feature. It was originally costing them like $1,000. Then it went to $5,000 to $6,000, and then they got some investors interested, and the investors gave them some money, so it blew up to like $55,000-$60,000. So it's kind of like George Lucas's THX. I believe that began as a student film, and I don't know if he got more funding for it, but he was able to turn that into a feature film. However, this movie was not well received. I think THX was relatively well received. This movie was not well received because I guess people didn't realize that it was supposed to be a comedy. And
so you wouldn't.
I don't know. But I think they went to it expecting 2001 A Space Odyssey, essentially. But
that's what it is.
Essentially, yeah, and I'm hoping to talk about that a little bit more. But so from this movie, the director and the writer, they moved on to horror careers, more or less, because the writer said, if I can't make them laugh, I will make them scream.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into Web of Schlock.
Yeah, hit me up.
If we could, John Carpenter. We really don't need to say much more than that.
I was keeping it under wraps.
Yeah, first directorial debut. Just what came out swinging right out of the gates. Thoroughly enjoy this.
And he is Schlock. He is Schlock alumni.
Oh yeah. We did The Fog and I'm sure we'll do a lot more of his shows. Love me some Carpenter. The other person I'd like to mention is a guy named Dan O'Bannon. If we could bring up the Pinback picture, he was one of the stars of the film, and he went on to write. He wrote Blue Thunder, and he wrote Return of the Living Dead and Life Force, and one of the stories in Heavy Metal, and
which is my favorite.
Invaders from Mars.
Story.
Total Recall. He also did Total Recall.
Yep.
I feel like I'm missing something. Am I missing a movie that he did?
Shoot. What? Let's see.
It's a movie reminds me of another movie.
It's like about it. They get an alien, and the alien. What was the movie called? The alien's in the ship.
That's Dark Star. Yeah, it's Dark Star.
Where it's loose in the ship.
Yeah, he's a beach ball and he's loose in the ship and he's attacking
Dark Star. Yeah, I guess. So anyway, this bit is stupid. He made Alien.
He made Alien. He wrote Alien. Yeah.
And also Aliens, which so happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time. So very excited.
Yeah, he is just a very cool writer, cool dude all around. And it's awesome to see him acting as well. I thoroughly enjoyed his character. And that's it for Web of Schlock. I guess, did the beach ball look familiar to you?
The beach ball did not look familiar, but the name of the person running the beach ball looked a little bit familiar.
Yeah.
In fact, we were just talking about one of his movies, Nick Castle. He directed Major Payne. He I think wrote some other pretty cool stuff, but the name stuck out to me because I just watched Major Payne for the first time in 20 years.
And he's also Michael Myers, little guy.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why I was bringing it up. Yeah.
Oh man, no, That's why his name's so familiar.
Yeah. Halloween. Yeah.
Man, blowing my brains out here.
I mean, it's a clear connection.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a straight line. Beach ball alien, Michael Myers.
Yeah, you work your way up the ladder from beach balls to serial killers. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. All right, let's get out of Web of Schlock and.
So before we move on, I want to give everybody kind of some touchstones for this movie, just to kind of keep in mind, like, here's what was out, like, here's where this sits in the world of science fiction. So in 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey came out. And as we mentioned, like, this movie is very 2001: A Space Odyssey. Star Wars will not have come out until 1977. So 3 years later. And I think that's a fair touchstone for science fiction, right? So a lot of things that you're seeing in here, like, if it feels Star Warsy or if it doesn't feel Star Warsy, like, it's because that property didn't exist, right? This is how people looked at science fiction and space travel and things. Star Trek, the original series, had been out.
Yeah, this was 70 what?
74.
And then when did
and it took them like 3 or 5 years to create. They worked on this and did reshoots, as the project grew and grew. It took them quite a while to create this movie. So they probably started in 1970.
Oh yeah,
at least.
When did Alien come out?
I believe Alien came out in 79.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So that's another touchstone. Yep. This movie feels like what if you wanted Alien and 2001: Space Odyssey, but you don't have time to watch either, and also you wish they were both comedies? Yeah,
man, that is a very good analysis. So yeah, let's get into the meat of the show. What we always talk about is what's good, what's bad, what's schlock. We go back and forth and fire off our good and our bad, and then we kind of get into what the movie is about, and that's our schlock session. What is schlock? We don't know. We're going to figure it out. Chris, do you want to start with your good and bad?
Sure. I'm going to start with the bad. The production value and the budget, which again, it's the nature of the beast. Some of it's slightly episodic, but it's kind of what it's meant to do. And That's really all I have for bad. I mean, I love this movie. So much of it's schlock. Good. I love the comic tone. For the budget they have, I love the sets. I love the special effects. The music, which is you can hear like little tidbits of what Carpenter is going to do later on. Like there's little snippets of Halloween and other things. I love the music. I love the ending. I love that it's that whole segment of like the alien, like the precursor, where you see it taking a different light. I love this movie. So what good and bad do you have that we can just get into the schlock?
So starting with the good, so that I actually really like the dialogue in this movie. I thought that they did it really well to build things in. So we have I call it like the happy computers. So we have the computer. It just sounds like a receptionist, and I think it actually was the receptionist. Yeah, here like the information on the computer like looks actually like a smiley face, right? It speaks with a sort of a sunny disposition, and the way the computer talks with the bombs. Right. That like instead of like these ones and zeros going back and forth, they're like actually having a conversation like,
right.
Hey, it's not your time to detonate. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, I just really enjoyed that. And having the computer in there was like a really great way to disseminate information to the audience.
Yeah.
Likewise, we talk about the beach ball alien and I mean, it's very clearly a beach ball and it's very silly, but they insert that into the dialogue prior when they're talking about finding a planet with intelligent life. And one of the crew members says, don't give me intelligent life. Last time we went, it was like something like a sponge with feet, right? So that little snippet of dialogue sets up us to see like this really ridiculously low budget alien later, which is like actually like pretty intelligent and very crafty. The tension in this movie. So it was in the elevator scene that I started noticing this. I was feeling very tense. I'm like, this dude is going to either get crushed or fall to his death. And I thought that this scene really showed like, okay, here's where you can see why John Carpenter moved on to more straight up horror and why Dan Bannon wrote really good tense horror scripts, horror science fiction scripts. I mean, you can just see it in there.
Yeah.
Next is the special effects. While they are very cartoony and they don't look the way that we would expect them to look, I couldn't help but think of it in this shot in particular.
Oh, they're pitch perfect for what they were going for.
Yeah. I couldn't help but think of it as like medieval art. So if you look at medieval art, the angles are all off. The perspective is all off. And you're like, why didn't they just draw it more realistically? Well, it's because they like weren't thinking about things like that in that time. And so they really didn't have the technique to do it. So why doesn't this look like more realistic? Well, it's the technique that they were using at the time. It's how they thought about these things that really hadn't been done before. So while it looks a little cartoony, I still think it looks great.
Yeah, well, and sci-fi was more representational than it was realistic for a long time.
Right. Think of like Trip to the Moon, the very first science fiction film or whatever, where they shoot a bullet essentially at the moon.
Yeah, it's representational. It's allegorical. It's the image of it, not the realistic nature of it. They want you to think about the thing, not necessarily believe in the thing.
Right.
Right.
So, and my last good thing is that I feel like $60,000 was quite a bit of money by today's standard for a low budget film, but I feel like they did some really cool things with their limited budget. And I call it the boiler room because it has, the room has like the character Boiler, I think his name is, he has it like spray painted on the wall, but it's their sleeping quarters. And they have it again in the dialogue. that they actually have like nice sleeping quarters,
but they're not using them.
But because they're broken, something happened and they got broken, and so now they're sleeping in like this really crappy room.
We can fix it. And the way this is shot reminds me so much of like Clockwork Orange. There are some shots that are very similar to this, and just I love the long room with just tons of stuff going on, and you just kind of like tunnel vision into it. And again, that's another Kubrick, so you have to wonder how much he was. Well, it came out after that.
Yeah, we'll get into that in Schlock a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a really good use of budget, right? They couldn't afford, science fiction sleeping quarters, so they just put it in this regular room, and they put it in the dialogue to explain why it's that way, and it totally fits with the movie.
Yeah.
However,
basically, go ahead.
Moving into my bad, so the effects and some things do feel dated, and just knowing that the budget is about $60,000, and I think of like what could be done with $60,000 today, that does make it feel a little bit dated to me. My biggest bad for it is I think the movie is a little bit slow. It's for people that are used to like fast paced action or fast moving storyline. It is a slow burn of a movie, and you really have to follow it for it to make any sense. Right. Again, in the vein of Kubrick. Yeah. And then my last thing for bad, and it's not really bad, it's just more of a question for myself of, if I didn't know like who the director was and who the writer was, would I have the same affinity for this movie if I just watched it? Right.
How do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't look at it through any other lens. So yeah, if you didn't know prior, let us know in the comments below. So anyway, Schlock. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the Schlock. Let's talk about Kubrick. Do you think so? I've never seen it. I believe you have. Dr. Strangelove.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we've talked that Kubrick's my favorite director, right?
I think we have talked about that.
Yeah. No, Strangelove's one of the best movies ever made.
So this ending to Dark Star, I guess it's ripped straight from Ray Bradbury's story, but to me it seemed very much like the scene in Dr. Strangelove where the guy is riding the missile to his death. To me, it has that same feel, accepting your doom and like being happy about it.
Yeah, looking on like the lighter side of something really dark.
Right.
Like finding the humor in hopelessness, right? Like,
and you can't stop it. Yeah.
Right. Hopeless. Yeah. There's no way out. So you might as well wave your cowboy hat as you're going down. You might as well surf. Right.
Exactly. Might as well surf into oblivion.
This is just one of the coolest ending shots ever. I just love it. And they bring the song back. He's surfing on a piece of the spaceship because he loves surfing, and like, what else would he do? And then it just that little plume of light at the end, like it's a perfect ending.
He burns up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect ending, and you're totally right. It's very, very Strangelove.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to point out, and we were talking about the boiler room and the reason the ship blows up. There's the phenomenology discussion, but I believe that the real reason that the ship blew up, and we see this thread going throughout the film, is that like they've been out here for so long. They like really don't care, and nothing is getting fixed. So
everything's slowly breaking down. They just got the transmission back 10 years later of like, sorry, we're not going to send a ship of supplies out to fix it. Right. Sorry.
Which, I mean, how could they? They're like so far away.
Yeah. It would never reach them. That beginning sets such a great tone for the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great. But yeah, no, I love that they all blow up and die because a bomb finds
Self-Actualization.
Yeah.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Right? Oh, you got it, buddy. Yeah, it's one of my favorite like last 10 minutes and ever. I just love it. Like it's such a smart idea of like, because they, like you said, they've already set up that all the bombs can talk and are intelligent, and so are the computer systems and everything else. And then they've set up that things are going awry, and then they just therefore I am. But how do you know that anyone else exists? I'll have to think about this.
Well, and I just love the way that I thinking of the future, right? Back then, they didn't have Siri or Alexa or anything like that. They did have the computer that you could talk to on Star Trek, right? They had HAL.
Yep.
But thinking of like, I don't know, I feel like they thought about it in a very practical way. Like, I want to just be able to talk to my computer and tell it what I want, and I don't want to have to use any specific command language or anything. Right. And I want it to explain things to me in a way that I can understand. Yeah. And so it seems like a very natural progression, especially now, to like develop a computer, an AI program in that way. And then if you do that for like all computers, then it seems very natural that if they start addressing each other, that they would do it in this way. And yeah, you create this sort of weird sentient being that can like think about things.
Well, and there's something you talked about that was interesting, but it's like the when you're talking about the elevator shaft and like their use of horror and like real dread and terror, right? But at the same time, there's this comic level that we're talking about. And I thought the end when the robot bomb is kind of recontextualizing Genesis. In the beginning there was nothing and me, and you just stay on their faces, right? And there's just like, it's really funny, but there's also this like existential dread that like
total dread. They know what's going on.
Because you can't relate to it like you can to another human, right? It's a sentient being that has power over you, right? But it's truly alien, right? Even though it's a robot, it's truly alien, and there's something so unnerving about that, even as it's being hilarious. And like that, the whole ending has that tone.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it's just like kind of really creepy when he starts quoting the Bible, and you're like, but he's like twisting it, and then let there be light, and then just bam. Here we got another.
Speaking of AI, artificial intelligence, androids, things that would show up in Dan Mann's work later.
It's a good
here,
bit.
buddy.
Reuse it, right?
Go
ahead.
So sorry.
No, it's all good.
This is from Aliens again.
Yeah.
Favorite movie. The knife trick. This was your talking point, so I don't want to steal it away from you.
Oh, I just wanted to bring it up because I knew you would want to talk about it. Just that it's
So you know me so well.
It's a rehash of. He's reusing awesome material. Like it's cool in this and it's cool in Aliens.
Right. And so for those who don't know, we'll spoil this for you. There is a
wait. We spoil everything.
Did we not
We didn't say that earlier.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, everybody.
We spoil everything. Now, spoil.
Darth Vader is Luke's father. In Aliens, there's an android, and the way that the main
Bruce
character
Willis was dead in Sixth Sense.
finds out the way the main character finds out that this person is a robot is that he does like this knife thing where he like do in between the fingers and like just goes like super fast. And yeah, we're just seeing a rehash of it, and we're seeing where the writer took things from this movie that really didn't hit for him and recontextualized it and made them into movies that are classics, cinema classics. I mean, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's like when some author writes a short story and has some cool bit in it, right? And then like decades later, they flesh it out into this novel that's this masterpiece, but it's still that seed is in there that they've messed around with.
Yeah.
Or like when a band kind of has like a song that like there's a little riff in it that like doesn't do anything, but then later on they bring it back and it's this whole song and it's
and if you're like a super fan, you were like listening to their demos back in the day, and
right.
you hear that again in an album down the road. It's just something that makes you feel really good, and you're really excited to see, or vice versa, or in the flip, right? Yeah. In my case. So I want to talk about Pinback really quick. The diary section
where he's not really Pinback.
Yeah, he has this 8-track that says "My Diary" on it, and he's recording these diary entries, and he says that he's Bill Frug, I believe the name is, and I think, I don't know if he says it, but I think the implication is that the real Pinback has committed suicide, and Bill Frug is in his clothing, and his underwear doesn't fit, and the uniform doesn't fit
right now.
And like, what I don't know, what's your take on that? Like, what do you think about it? That because it seems like the death of Commander Powell is like a really big deal for all of them, but apparently there was another person on this ship that died.
Well, and I don't know if I think this might have been before they got on the ship. Like, I wonder if he's been pretending to be Pinback for like several years, like Pinback,
or if he was like a replacement.
Yeah, it's hard to. Well, he said he was like
replacement.
He was like in like, it wasn't construction, but or like engineering, but he was in some like department that like
steel engineer or something like that.
And so I think he just kind of took over as Pinback. He saw an opportunity and took it. So like there's something strange, and then like you can see him kind of going insane through this whole thing of like, I try and bring levity to this place, and they don't get my humor, and they're just everyone's bringing it down, and like there's again, because they're on a ship and you're finding out that who they say they are, they aren't, and then that you're
and what an odd experience. Like they say that they've only aged 3 years, but they've been out there 20 years, I believe, and so there's. I think it's called the twin paradox, I think is what they're talking about. It's where, like, if there's a set of twins and one stays on Earth and one goes to outer space, the one on Earth ages faster, and then the one in outer space comes back, and they're like of the same age because of the relativity of time. Anyway, they're playing around with that concept, and I just think that that's really interesting because you don't see that very much in space movies, right? Again, in Star Trek, they're like, oh man, this thing is happening clear on the other side of the galaxy that we gotta get to now. But like in reality, like you can't get there now.
Well, I mean, what is now in space?
Right, like the time is so messed up that even like with faster than light speed.
And even getting that message to like help us on this planet, by the time you receive that message, even with light speed,
they'd all be dead. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I don't know if they portrayed it correctly. I'm guessing that they didn't, because they're not physicists either. But I think it's a really interesting concept to put in, and just the fact that they've been there for so long that they've like forgotten their names. Like they can't remember the first names. They just remember like what's on their name tag. And then we have Commander Powell. And I thought that this was incredibly interesting. He's dead, but they have him on ice and they can still communicate with him. They can
telepathically. Yeah. And they haven't visited him for a while, which is also interesting and funny.
Which, and then crazy philosophical moral implications, right? Like you can communicate with the dead. He's clearly there, like waiting for them to talk to him. But what
do you owe? And then it's also interesting that he's the catalyst for their death, because he's the one who says,
talk to the bomb.
Talk to the bomb.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, since Dan O'Bannon, or just Dan Bannon?
Dan O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon, he wrote and directed Return of the Living Dead. And I believe that in there, the dead, they have a very similar disposition to Commander Powell, like this really kind of airy, like, I've waited for you for so long. We are the dead. So, you can just see these themes throughout his work.
Right.
So it looks like we are out of time. Boy, I could totally keep talking about this.
Yeah, I love this movie. Yeah.
But so, Chris, I'll give you the last word. I know that it's your movie pick this week. So tell us what's on your mind.
We are going to be watching another Dan O'Bannon written thing.
Yes.
We are watching Dead and Buried.
Oh, I've wanted to see that for a very long time.
Dead and Buried.
And it's for free on Tubi?
Free on Tubi, written by Dan O'Bannon.
Boom. Awesome.
See you next Monday.
I'm Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. We've been compelled by Schlock. We'll see you on the flippity flop.
Flippity flop flop.
Peace. Pay your taxes. Or don't. I'm not a cop.
I am compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Wait, no.